right. Hello and welcome everyone to the first of 6 installments of Align Modern Health's Spring Digital Doc Series. If this is the first time you're joining us, we at Align Modern Health look to tackle topics that are everyday health and lifestyle concerns with the knowledge and practical tips from our very own health and wellness providers. My name is Ryan Catern, and I will be your host today and also your guinea pig. We will be doing a little spring cleaning, taking a look into the pantry that I share with my wonderful girlfriend, and finding areas where we can improve our nutrition by recognizing inflammatory ingredients and learning to make better choices. But first, if this is your first time tuning in and you've never heard of Align Modern Health, we are Chicago's highest rated and integrative health and wellness. We take a non-surgical, non-pharmaceutical, evidence-based care approach to medicine we practice. We have 15 locations across the city and suburbs where we offer chiropractic physical medicine, functional medicine and clinical nutrition, acupuncture, and clinical massage therapy. We look to get to the root cause of our problems, not just treating your symptoms. While these are the most common things we do treat, we certainly go beyond this list. So today, we have with us a very special guest. She is an amazing functional medicine doctor and certified clinical nutritionist. But beyond that, her and I have shared long conversations on health, lifestyle, and everything under the sun. We can literally talk and laugh for hours. She is an amazing educator, helping her patients find a reasonable answer to anyone's "how do I" questions. She has passionately used her experience with functional medicine and clinical nutrition to help navigate through her own health challenges as related to the immune system and during her own pregnancy. She doesn't just practice what she preaches, she lives it. Everyone, please welcome Dr. Kristen Halland.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Ryan, for that warm intro.
Of course. I couldn't do it any other way. I'm really excited to do this with you, by the way. So before we do get started, if anyone should have any questions at all, please type it in the Q&A section, and we'll get to the questions at the very end. Let's begin. So I feel like inflammation has a little bit of a bad reputation. It's almost like he's not really a bad guy, just a little misunderstood. What do you think, Dr.?
Yeah, that's exactly how it is. You know, inflammation is a normal response by the body. When we have an injury to our tissues, we want blood flow to the area. We want inflammation because that helps with the process of healing and repair. However, when that inflammation becomes chronic, it lingers longer than he's welcome. That definitely is negative towards the body, and that will begin tissue destruction. And probably we won't feel great if we're chronically inflamed too.
Yeah, you made all really good points there. Can you talk to us about some effects that we would see with some excessive inflammation?
Yeah. Well, I think most people, when they come into the clinic, when they have chronic inflammation, they're talking about brain fog, because we know that there's a huge connection between what we eat and the brain. They talk a lot about fatigue being very low energy. The body is clogged down by fighting inflammation, and we don't have energy for other things. They definitely talk about having aches and pains or joint pain, and this is especially relevant in people who have autoimmune conditions. They often have lower functioning immune systems and age worse. In fact, one of the most popular topics in the research right now is the concept of aging. So inflammation and aging put together. So the more chronic lingering inflammation we have, the worse we'll be aging.
Oh no.
I know.
And
yes.
I love the play on words, inflammaging. You know, here at Align Modern Health, we love to do a little play on words. So thank you for that, inflammaging.
Yeah. I wish I had made that one up, but I didn't.
Okay. We'll give you credit for today.
Thank you.
Right. So what are we doing today? So we just want to let you all know this is actually my real pantry. My girlfriend and I are both functional medicine patients. She is very keen on consuming only gluten-free and pretty good on being soy and dairy-free too. If you see anything in this pantry that has gluten in it, it's likely because I put it there. And we're going to go through multiple areas. So like pastas and rice, coffees and teas, dressings and cooking oils, nuts and snacks. It is also important to know that for the focus of today, we'll be looking primarily at the ingredients over nutritional value, but we will still talk a little bit about nutritional value, of course. It is also meant not to food shame anyone, most importantly me, Rather, it is to recognize and be mindful of the things that we're purchasing and consuming and know where we can make good, intentional decisions in our diets. Sound good?
Yeah,
Right.
I appreciate you putting
So
yourself
first,
out there for this event.
There's no shame here.
Yeah.
First off, Dr. Helen, what are we going to be looking for today?
Well, when we check out our foods in the context of inflammation, think of it as a scale of inflammation. All the way on the left side, we have anti-inflammatory food choices. These are things like vegetables, healthy fats. We have the neutral zone, of course, and then the pro-inflammatory foods that we're not going to want to include a lot of in our diet. And these are things that are overly processed, different types of bad fats and other items. So I want to try to talk about each of our sections in the context of anti, pro, or neutral inflammatory choices.
Great. Fantastic. All right, so let's go and let's get started. Let's start looking at some food. So starting out with carbohydrates. First of all, it is important to know that carbs are a pretty big part of my diet, and also Steph's, because we are both endurance athletes. So the first one I want to share with you is actually one of our favorite pastas, and it's this Banza rotini. We actually go with all the different styles of pastas, but it's made from chickpea. What do you think about this?
Okay, well, the first thing is when we look at the ingredients list on the left side, I can recognize each of the words written there. So I love that this ingredients list is very clean, very simple. That's the sign of a good product. Chickpeas, I would say that those are more towards the neutral side of the anti-inflammatory spectrum. Of course, chickpeas and beans can be problematic for some people, but not all. So far, I'm kind of liking this. I do want you to notice, though, that the carb content of pastas is a little higher. And don't forget to check that on the ingredients list, because I'm going to have a comment about that, I suspect, later.
All right, sounds good. I'm bracing myself. I didn't know this before, so we're going to move on to the next one. But we're looking at a couple of different rices that we have here. So we have our regular organic wild rice and the basmati. I didn't know there's a little bit of a difference between these types of rices. But can we discuss a little bit about that, and then talk a little bit about brown rice versus white rice, and even like the other like black rice?
Yeah. Well, I love that these choices are organic, and sometimes people will choose a white rice for a specific reason versus brown rice or wild rice or black rice. The darker the rice, the wild rice, the black rice, and brown rice, those typically have better nutrient status, but the white rice is easier on the digestive system. So they both have their role, right?
Okay, great. Well, moving on to the next kind of carbohydrate that we like to play with. So we do like to zoodle or buy veggie pasta. What do you think about this?
Zoodling is so popular right now. I love this idea. These are made from the meat of a palm tree. So that's very interesting and exciting. And anything that's plant often will fall into the anti-inflammatory category. And I also want to point out the carb content on this is very, very low. That's good, because the standard American diet typically is too high in carbs. So if carbohydrates are a big part of your diet, it's great to find ways to have variety there. A well-rounded, healthy anti-inflammatory diet is going to include variety. So I like this option as well.
I love variety. And so that's just something good to know. In the general diet, this is going to be great. But for training, maybe look to add a little more carbohydrates to this to our mix.
Yeah, you might go through all of these choices at different phases of your diet.
Now, people might be also wondering, well, what about the Barilla pasta, right? Or what if I'm out to dinner and they don't have, like, say, gluten-free pasta? Is normal pasta okay?
Yeah. Well, normal pasta, I have to say, Ryan, I would need to classify that as pro-inflammatory. The pasta that's made from wheat, your normal Barilla pasta, that's not going to always respond well to everyone's system. And it's commonly known that that can be a little pro-inflammatory. So that's not my favorite of the options, which is why we don't have it included here.
Sounds good. Okay. Well, that's all right. That's, very good to know. Moving on to now our oils and dressings. We do a lot of cooking in our own home. So let's address some of the oils that we have here. What do you feel about our choice of cooking spray?
I feel very good about this choice. The way that we prepare our food can definitely have an anti or pro-inflammatory effect. And healthy fats is a huge topic under the umbrella of inflammation. Avocado oil is going to sustain heat really well. So this is great for high heat cooking because sometimes when you apply a heat to a fat, it will become rancid or pro-inflammatory and bad for us. So I love avocado oil as a high heat cooking choice. And I also love that on the ingredients list, there's only one item listed: avocado oil.
Absolutely. Yep. The less is better here in that situation, right?
Definitely.
All right. Well, that's good. I'm glad you're talking about actually cooking temperature, because moving on to our next oil, which is olive oil. Let's talk about that, because that has a little bit of a contrast in terms of temperature level, right? And so let's talk about what it's best for, what people might not know.
Yeah. I feel like this is one of the most interesting unknown tips about cooking with oils. Olive oil is a great, healthy anti-inflammatory choice, but not when you apply heat to it. This fat is not heat stable. So this is better used raw. So if I was going to incorporate olive oil as a healthy fat in my diet and I wanted the anti-inflammatory effect, I would cook some vegetables, perhaps steam them, and then maybe drizzle a tiny bit of olive oil on top, or maybe even make a homemade salad dressing. That's what I would do with this.
Yeah, absolutely. There's actually a dressing that we do love to make here, and that's right, really simple. Just a little Dijon mustard, apple cider vinegar, EVOO, and a little shallot. Shake it up. It's ready to go. So
yeah, don't you think making homemade dressing is actually easier than it sounds?
Absolutely. Yeah. Once we figured that out, the whole world opened up.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on to the next one, one of our other oils that we frequently use is coconut oil. What do you feel about that?
Coconut oil is really popular right now. I like this choice. It has a very moderate heat stability point. This is good up to about 350 degrees for cooking. So this can absolutely be an anti-inflammatory, healthy fat choice under the right heat conditions, modest heat conditions.
Modest heat conditions. Okay. So we covered 3 different oils. What do you think about other oils like corn, vegetable, canola? What do you think about those?
I'm glad you mentioned it. Those are some of the more common oils, especially found in the restaurant industry or prepackaged foods, because of course those places have to buy in bulk, so they're going to purchase a lot of corn and vegetable oils. But unfortunately, those are super pro-inflammatory for oils. So those are the ones we're going to seek to avoid.
Okay, sounds good. Avoid those oils.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to dressings. This one is one of my favorite and go-tos. What do you feel about this? Please don't say it's bad.
I love the Primal Kitchen brand. Actually, I've had really good success with this as well. The ingredients list initially looks like it could be a little bit long, but actually not. It just has the word organic repeated. So it looks initially worse than it is. This is a great looking ingredients list, and I love that they chose avocado oil for the base of the ingredients. And I've tried a lot of these as well. I actually think they're really good.
Fantastic. I can keep that one.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on to our next dressing though, and we just have this little bit of a feeling about this one. So we all have little guilty pleasures in life. For Steph, this is it, which I find really funny because mine is more like tiramisu and key lime pie. But what do you feel about this particular dressing?
Well, I love how at this point you're kind of mentioning this is Steph's choice, not yours. This one, Ryan, I have to say, you're losing me a little bit on this dressing. I'm not loving this choice. When we look at this ingredients list, we got a lot of things going on here and not the best oil choices. Also, something I always love to bring about dressings is that they have a ton of hidden dairy in them. I don't think a lot of people realize that. They just think ranch dressing obviously has dairy, but other types can too. So this is a great example of just because something is labeled gluten-free doesn't mean it's necessarily the best of the best choices. So I definitely wouldn't qualify this one as an anti-inflammatory dressing choice. But it's okay, Ryan. We all have guilty pleasures in our pantries.
Right. If there's gonna be a guilty pleasure, maybe this might be all right.
Yeah.
Probably better than my tiramisu and key lime pie choices.
Maybe. And I'm not going to tell you what my guilty pleasure is. We don't need to go into that on this webinar.
Another webinar.
Yeah. Another time.
All right, so moving on now to our nuts. We do have our raw cashews here. What do you feel about these nuts?
I love nuts as a healthy fat snack. Nuts definitely have the ability to be anti-inflammatory under the right conditions. And here's what those conditions are. First of all, we've got to keep our nuts raw. So when you turn the package around, you look at the ingredients list, there should be one word there and one word only. That's it. No seasonings, no peanut oil, basically no fun of any kind, Ryan. We've got to be very straight-laced on our nut choices for that anti-inflammatory benefit. And I love that you chose cashews. There are so many great nuts that have a good omega-3 profile. I love walnuts, cashews, almonds. Those are great nut choices. I would say that my least favorite of the nuts is actually peanut. It has the worst inflammatory fat profile of all of the nut choices. So that's in my last place.
Okay, that's good to know. Good to know. Moving on to the next one. In contrast to the simple and in raw, we kind of have it all in this nut bag.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel about that?
Well, this was kind of fun. The everything but the bagel seasoning from Trader Joe's is really popular. I love on the ingredients list that this is almonds and cashews as the main nut. So I think that's an excellent choice. The seasoning isn't bad either. When we get to the part where it says natural flavors, corn syrup, solids, and sunflower oil, that's where things get a little shaky. Those aren't great low chemical or anti-inflammatory food choices. So I would say this is kind of a moderate level choice. It started out real good, but not quite as good as our last slide.
Okay, so it's not a terrible item. But that's really interesting about the natural flavors bit too. So
Yeah,
something
that phrase is definitely a marketing term that allows a lot of chemicals under that umbrella, more so than you would imagine.
Okay. All right, well, moving on to the next one. I'm bracing myself for this one. This is actually one of my guilty pleasures. I wanted to show you what I consume. This can is actually an empty can because it has been consumed.
Let me guess, Ryan. Did Steph eat the whole can by herself? It wasn't you?
Like 75% of it.
Okay.
But what do you feel about this?
Well, I love how you save the ones that you're worried about for last. That's so funny. This also starts out good. We have cashews and almonds, which are excellent nut choices because they have a lot of good fats. Also pecans and pistachios, great nut choices. But we have a lot of undesirable ingredients here. We've got sugar, honey, salt, vegetable oil, peanut oil, soy, and then all of the other words you see here like maltodextrin, that's an example of sugar, just another name of sugar. So this is a very high sugar product. This is, I would say, not anti-inflammatory. And sometimes you have to weigh the benefits, right? Like you might say, well, is it worth it if I get the cashews and the almonds and the pistachios and pecans? Does that balance out? And for me, I would say no. I would put an ingredient like this in the avoid category.
I'm glad that you covered that because I was going to ask you, can the bad outweigh all the good? Because I do choose it for the variety of nuts, but as you mentioned, all the other additional ingredients, that certainly would overshadow all the good that I was looking at. Is that right?
I think in this example, I think that it would.
Darn. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, Ryan, don't shoot the messenger, okay?
I guess I'm happy that that can's consumed already. So.
Right.
All right. Well, moving on to the next one, we're going to move on to our coffees and teas. This is our first tea option that we're showing here. We do try to add, like, when we see apple cider vinegar in our diet. So when we see this, we're like, okay, this seems fine. What do you think about this tea?
Well, I love tea also, and this looks like a fun little blend. I like that it is organic. And this definitely has some interesting ingredients. Ginger can be anti-inflammatory and great for the gut. I like this choice. I approve.
Fantastic. Good. Moving on to the next tea. This is more of like our treat tea. We have other flavored teas and some, different coffees. So this is one of them. What do you think about this one?
Well, that phrase on the ingredients list, natural flavors, again, that's a little shaky. There's probably some chemicals there, but I love the other ingredients. This is great that it has black tea and espresso. There is some antioxidant benefit from teas and coffee, and that can be very anti-inflammatory. So I'm okay with this choice.
All right. Excellent treat here. Now I do want to ask you a little bit of like, the preference of like loose leaf tea and talk to us a little bit about, the production of the different tea bags that are out there, and talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like oils. The way we do things also matters. So loose leaf tea is always preferred if possible, because the little tea bags that tea come in, those can be bleached. They're cotton that's bleached. They've been sprayed with pesticides in the field, so we don't need any extra chemicals in our lifestyle. So even though it's less convenient, if possible, I prefer loose leaf. And there was a really great article that came out a couple of years ago. Did you ever hear about Food Babe online? Are you familiar with her website?
Because you made me familiar with her.
I bet. Yeah, well, she had come out a couple years ago and became well known because she brought to light some issues with Panera's ingredients lists. And so she's very much a proponent of cleaner, transparent ingredients lists. And she put together a great chart of different tea brands and how clean they were. And off the top of my head, I remember too, because they're very readily available at a lot of common grocery stores, even Target. Those are Traditional Medicinals and Numi, N-U-M-I. So those are usually the tea brands that I try to gear toward if I'm out at a regular grocery store looking for what I want.
Okay, fantastic. Some good resources there. All right, so moving on to our next one. This is our coffee, and this is our go-to coffee. I had it this morning. I'm going to have it again tomorrow. What are your thoughts about this coffee?
I love that you've chosen organic. I think that's awesome because, there's definitely some benefits to coffee, especially the antioxidant function, which would help us be more anti-inflammatory. People love that it helps with brain fog. There's so many reasons that we enjoy doing this. But one tick against coffee is the fact that it's one of the most pesticide-filled crops that gets shipped into the US. So coffee is not always very clean and full of pesticides. So I love to choose organic on this as often as possible.
Okay, so that sounds like that is like almost a big flag for if we're going to purchase anything organic, make sure your coffee is going to be organic. For that reason, yeah.
It goes back to a concept that a lot of people know of online called the Dirty Dozen from ewg.org. So, if you can't get everything organic all of the time, which sometimes is beyond our control, perhaps our local grocers don't even have what we're looking for as organic. You want to make your choices very, very targeted and isolate the dirtiest items and make sure that you focus on those.
Okay. Now I'll stick with the coffee a little bit here and talk a little bit about having whole bean versus ground up coffee, and talk about the difference between those two.
Well, it would definitely be fresher if you could get the whole beans and then grind them yourself at home. That would definitely be fresher and a preferred option.
Sure. And it's also, I think, important to know to look at the ingredients when you look at coffee, because sometimes coffee can have some filler if it's already pre-ground for you. Is that correct?
Yes. Now, I'm not big on coffee personally, but I absolutely believe that coffee companies are doing that.
Sure. Okay. And then one more question about coffee, because I know that coffee is a pretty big consumption item for a lot of us.
Yeah.
Is coffee inherently an inflammatory or anti-inflammatory product, or is it more like a neutral item?
Well, I have to say neutral because I think there's a pro and con to this ingredient, and a little bit of the information out there can be a little controversial. You definitely have clinicians and research with opposing views about the role of coffee in the diet. So I think it can be anti-inflammatory, but perhaps we'll put it in the neutral category.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. So moving on to our snacks. This next one is one of Steph's favorite snacks, olives in general, but something like a bag like this we take on like our hikes and stuff. What do you think about this?
Oh, I love these. I use these as well. Olives can be a really healthy fat snack. So this is a great choice. Everybody loves snacks, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, who can go wrong with olives and snacking? So, all right. So moving on to the next one, I'm really curious about this. So this is my emergency snack. I literally carry this around with me everywhere. Because if my stomach's feeling a little bit, gurgly, I got this to kind of calm things down and make things better. But how do you feel about it?
Well, ginger can be really great for the gut. I used these a lot when I was pregnant. From an anti-inflammatory perspective, I don't love it as well because the first ingredient on the bag is cane sugar. And as you know, these things basically look like they've been rolled in sugar, which is why they're so delicious, right? So from an anti-inflammatory perspective, I feel like this isn't the best snack choice, but I do like it if you need something to help out your gut.
All right, so I can still stick with the ginger. I just have to carry like a root with me and shave some off here and there.
Right, exactly. Just not a raw ginger root, Ryan.
All right, sounds good. All right, moving on to the next one. I think a lot of us are probably gonna be familiar with this, and this is my favorite go-to snack. What do you feel about this?
Yeah, I like RX Bar quite a bit too. This brand is known for having a very, very clean, simple ingredients list. And in these examples, we're definitely seeing some good anti-inflammatory nut choices like cashews, pecans, almonds. So that looks really good. You have to be careful with these though sometimes because typically the first ingredient is dates on many of these bars. And that can be a little bit towards the sugary or carb side, depending on what you're trying to accomplish with your diet. But I love the cleanliness of this label.
Fantastic. All right. So moving on to our next one, who doesn't love chocolate? I know there's some people who actually don't like chocolate, but
well, that's weird.
Yeah, that's a little off.
Yeah.
But what about chocolate, and what percentage of cacao does it need to get your approval, or does this get your approval?
You know what? I would love the 80+%. And chocolate does have some antioxidant benefit. It could be a little bit anti-inflammatory. It's kind of like coffee, though. There is a huge downside to it. And that is typically all of the other things that go into making the chocolate product, sugar. And in this example of the label that we're looking at, we have soy lecithin, which is an emulsifier, a chemical emulsifier that helps make chocolate. So there is a downside to that as well. I put this in the neutral category.
Ooh, at least we made it to neutral.
Thank you. You're right. It could be a lot worse.
So, we just covered a lot of different foods, and we live in a life with so many choices, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. I feel like that's where we say, forget this and give me all the inflammation, and this is too hard. Yeah. How can we simplify so that it's not so stressful?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it really just comes down to a couple of key talking points if you want to be more towards the anti-inflammatory side of the spectrum. So if I have to over-summarize everything, here's what I'm going to say. Number one, keep the chemicals low. We want the body focused on fighting chronic inflammation, not worrying about all the chemicals and other functions that it has to do. So keep your ingredients list clean. Number two, more antioxidants. Antioxidants are basically just good guys that are going to fight inflammation for us. They come from a lot of sources. Green tea is high in antioxidants. And Ryan, I don't want to spoil the surprise, but basically it's all vegetables. Okay. So when you go down the produce aisle and you see how the vegetables and fruits look, they look so beautiful with amazing color. That color is the antioxidant that's going to fight inflammation. And I want you to keep it about 75% vegetable, 25% fruit when you're looking at fresh produce for antioxidant benefit. And third, more good fats, less bad fats. So if I had to really oversummarize it, if you could remember those three things, that's going to get us right on track to gear towards anti-inflammatory strategies.
Fantastic. I think that does simplify it well for us. Now, going anti-inflammatory isn't just all about diet. So why is it important to combine lifestyle with diet? And what are some good habits for us to complement our anti-inflammatory diet?
It's so important because the things that we do all day, every day can really add up to big results. So in addition to diet, I would also say that it's really important to have great hydration that just helps flush out the body and keep all of our muscles feeling good. It's also really, really important to have movement. Sometimes if we struggle with chronic inflammation, we might also have chronic pain or joint pain. And your natural kind of inclination is to avoid movement. Stillness does not help resolve inflammation. And it's also really good to think about stress mitigation techniques. We all struggle with stress in our own ways, and working on stress mitigation is hard. It can be easy too, though. We could do small things like listen to a great podcast in a 5-minute mini episode. You could do an Epsom salt bath a couple of times a week. Since you're an endurance runner, that could be a fun strategy for you. But anything that we do that can mitigate stress is only going to help this goal, because stress will drive up chronic inflammation.
Fantastic. I love all those, tips and advice there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know what? We are at the end of our presentation, and we're going to go ahead and start taking some questions because I love it. There's so many.
Okay, great.
All right. So first of all, I'm also going to keep everyone anonymous, so I'm not going to pull out the names, but what about sunflower seeds and Brazil nuts? How do you feel about that, Dr. Helen?
Oh, Brazil nuts are excellent. That's a little more of a unique nut in our area. They have great selenium for the thyroid gland, and sunflower seeds could be great too. I know I talked a lot about nuts specifically, but let's not forget seeds, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds. Those have healthy fat benefits, and that would support an anti-inflammatory perspective.
Fantastic. I would love at some point to see your list of what you would make in a trail mix that would make it like super healthy and good. It would be at some point.
That could be fun.
All right, next question. So for cooking oil, you'd use avocado high heat and coconut oil for moderate heat. Olive oil only for raw?
Exactly. That's exactly kind of the tier system of oils. So avocado oil for the highest heat, like if you're sauteing on the stove top, or maybe you're going to be cooking something in the oven and you need to give it a little spray so it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan. And then the coconut oil is going to be medium heat. Maybe you're cooking something on medium on your stovetop. And then the olive oil is raw for drizzling on your steamed vegetables, or maybe even making a dressing.
Okay. Keeping it within the oil conversation, is light olive oil better for cooking?
Okay, that's a really tough question. Ryan, I'm no chef. Okay. But it was my understanding that you would use the lighter oil if you're going to make something, like maybe you were doing mozzarella and tomato and basil and you wanted to drizzle the olive oil. If you're going to be eating it as part of the dish, you would do the light.
Okay. That's good. That's good advice.
I hope there's no chefs on here though, Ryan, because that could be completely inaccurate.
maybe in the next digital doc we'll bring on a chef. So sure up that end. All right. So someone just asked, will this recording webinar be sent out to the registered attendees? Yes, it will. So even if you're watching it for the first time, watching this again and want to go back and rewatch it again, it's going to be sent out to you very soon. So, all right. I like this question. So how does inflammation add to menstrual cramp pain, and could a low inflammation diet minimize cramps?
Wow, I love that question. As females, our menstrual cycle is so important. Some docs even consider it an extra vital sign because it speaks so much to the health of our entire body. And when you have symptoms of the cycle, especially cramping or discomfort or pain, that can be improved with anti-inflammatory strategies. So I love that idea. That person that asked the question was thinking absolutely perfectly.
That's a very good question. You can give yourself applause for that one.
Yeah.
So speaking of fats, what about vegan butter, such as Earth Balance or for cooking at heat or raw? Also curious about so we'll answer that one first, and there's the second part of the question, but we'll move on to that one in a moment. So we'll keep that question up.
Okay. Well, I'm not familiar with all of the ingredients list of the Earth Balance butter, but I love the idea of looking at this. Perhaps we'll do a future webinar on this again, and we'll be able to include that as one of our items that we'll put up on the screen. But I think it all comes down to the oils. If the product is made from a lot of oils like canola oil, vegetable oil, corn oil, then it's not going to be a good choice. But if they're using some more creative oils like avocado oil, then it's gonna be a good anti-inflammatory benefit. So Ryan, I think we'll have to take a look at some of the ingredients lists and find out for sure.
Fantastic. Um, and then also curious about popular oat milk brands like Oatly. How do you feel about that?
Mm-hmm. So Ryan, I've actually been really obsessed. I have a nut milk making machine on my countertop. It's like my favorite kitchen appliance. So I haven't been buying as many, different types of nut-based milks recently. I am definitely a fan though of using a nut-based milk as opposed to cow dairy, because cow dairy for most people is going to be very pro-inflammatory. So I love that idea. And then when we look at the ingredients list of a nut-based milk, we want to try to keep it as clean and short as possible without items like carrageenan, if possible.
Okay. Yeah. I would like to know if that is more popular than the air fryer. I'm not sure if you have an air fryer, but that'd be safe for another conversation.
Oh, we'll never know.
Next question. Are you saying sugar is not inflammatory when you were speaking about Ryan's nut guilty pleasure?
Yeah. Well, sugar definitely is very pro-inflammatory. Thank you for clearing that up.
Organic blackberry flavor, is the tea in the tea, is that okay? So we're going back to
that was your very first tea that you put up. It had organic blackberry and a few other items. I remember apple cider vinegar and ginger and licorice root were in there. Yeah, I thought that was a great tea brand.
Fantastic. What about homemade tea made out of fresh ginger and cinnamon, added small amount of honey for sweetness? What do you feel about that?
I love that idea. There's a lot of spins you could put on this. If you were making that type of tea at home, I would even recommend maybe putting a little bit of green tea in there as the base, not just water, for a little more anti-inflammatory benefit. And spices and seasonings such as cinnamon can be very anti-inflammatory as well.
Okay. So yeah, pretty good.
So I have a quick little recipe off the top of my head. Here's my exact spin that I put on that homemade tea. When I make it, I do 1 tea bag worth of green tea as the base instead of water. I put a little drop of coconut oil into it, a squeeze of lemon, a dab of raw honey, and a generous sprinkle of cinnamon, and a chunk of ginger at the bottom.
Ooh, did you all get that?
Yeah, that was my exact recipe, just right off the top of my head.
That was good. I like that. Which tea brands did you say should be avoided?
Oh, thank you for reminding me to repeat this. So I actually want to reference the Food Babe article on tea brands for avoid. It was easier for me, since I store so much in my head, to memorize the good ones that I want to gear towards. So I would say if you try to gear towards traditional medicinals or Numi, that will be easier than what all of the bad ones are. And I would definitely encourage you to check out some of the material on that if you want to broaden your scope on different tea brands that you may enjoy or have accessible at your local store.
There you go. For a person who only drinks water, not even coffee, and should I begin to include tea? First of all, I'm impressed.
I agree. Round of applause. Water is hands down the best beverage. There are a couple of different teas that you may try. If you want to do it for an anti-inflammatory reason specifically, I would recommend a little bit of light green tea consumption.
There you go. Add a little more variety there.
Yeah.
And the next question asked about, what about the ingredients in the olives pack?
Yeah, there was a couple of ingredients in there. If we could have fresh olives, I think that would definitely be better. But the reality is, a lot of us are working, we're on the go, we have all kinds of things going on. Our diets won't be perfect all of the time, every single day. And I'm even ratting myself out. I'm actually not perfect either. So sometimes you just have to pick and choose if you want a little bit of a convenience factor.
Absolutely. No, we're on here because we're human, Dr. Halland. Not because we're perfect.
Right. Exactly. Yes. That's something I talk about with patients is, the only reason that I get to be the master at this is because I've messed it up more times than they have. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I have another question here, and I'll throw it out there and see what you think. It says, is lactic acid okay?
Mm. I think that was referring to one of the ingredients in the olive packets. And those are added chemicals for stabilizing a product. So not desirable.
Yeah. Okay. Just to answer the next question here, yes, you will get this, not the slides, but you'll get this recording again. So you'll certainly get a chance to go through all the slides from beginning to end. Someone also asked, what about peanut butters? Healthy or are they healthy, or would you go for other nut butters?
I would love to incorporate other nut butters in the diet, actually. Peanut is the most common, but it actually has the worst omega, aka fat profile. So I love using other nut butters like almond butter, cashew butter, walnut butter, and they make even more than that in the aisles. So I would definitely encourage you to get creative and maybe see if there's a little variety there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So someone would like you to repeat the percentages of veggies and fruit for anti-inflammatory.
Ooh, thank you. It's almost like I wrote that question myself. So, when we're looking at our fresh produce for anti-inflammatory benefit, and we want all of those beautiful colors in the diet, we want it to be 75% vegetable, 25% fruit.
Okay.
Thank you so much to that person for asking.
That is good to know. What kind of snacks, what kind of sweet snacks or foods that could replace dessert that you like? And this person is asking for their daughter.
That's funny. Ryan, maybe we'll table that one on an offline discussion, because I feel like if we start getting into that, I feel like that's going to open up a whole Pandora's box. And that is a very important, real, practical question. You know, when we're working in the clinic and we're assisting patients with changing their lifestyle and their diet, we equip them well. We don't come into a scenario with a patient and say, okay, you can never have all of these things again. Bye. Good luck. We make sure we troubleshoot and work through those things, but that's definitely a very loaded question. I know we're doing great on time.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I have a little bit of a long question, but I think this is fantastic. First of all, thank you for the kudos. It says, hi guys, wonderful job on this webinar. We value your opinion on the effect of chemicals, specifically pesticides and herbicides, has on our bodies and inflammation. A patient was told she was allergic to gluten for years until we had a practitioner test her sensitivity for glyphosate. It was found that glyphosate was hurting her, not gluten. She switched to organic pasta and had no issues for the past 3 years. Curious if you have found any patients of yours responding better to an organic diet versus a gluten-free diet. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for that comment and question.
Yes, thank you. I'm so glad you've been enjoying the webinar today. Yes, and that exact scenario that played out is actually very common in the news media right now. And I think as time goes on, we're seeing more and more the harmful effects of chemicals and the way that different countries like the United States do things. We have the most relaxed rules for chemicals here, and our food in this country is definitely different than what the rest of the world is doing. And I think the chemical content and the quality of food continues to be more relevant. And yes, that is definitely a thing that we are seeing.
Fantastic. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we only have so much more time, and I love that there's so many questions. This is really good. So I'm going to lump up some of these questions, and then we're going to close up. So, but first of all, I like this one. Does roasting nuts and seeds destroy their nutritional benefits?
Well, it doesn't destroy it. Okay, so if you're talking about home roasting, that would be okay. But you know, when you buy nuts in a bag at the store, typically if they're roasted, they're going to have seasonings and maybe even peanut oil that were used to make the product. So if you're home roasting, I think that's a reasonable way to incorporate variety with the flavors and how you incorporate nuts into your diet. But if you're buying it in a bag and it's already pre-roasted, then that's probably not the right scenario.
Fantastic. Okay. We have a few questions here about discussing about nightshades. So let's just talk about nightshades and discuss a little bit about your thoughts about nightshades, and maybe give the audience what are nightshades?
Well, those are really common foods, you know, like tomatoes, eggplant, those are nightshades. So it's this very specific group of foods. And it can be inflammatory and the wrong choice for certain people with specific conditions. But I think this really speaks to the nature of functional medicine as a practice style, that there is no one magic answer that's going to fix everyone's issues. The most important thing is creating personalized medicine and taking a look at where people are at with their health and what they're trying to accomplish and get them with the right types of strategies. So for me, there is no one blanket thing that's going to solve all inflammation ever for every person. It's about matching the right strategies with the person's goals.
There you go. I love that answer. There's a really important one. The last two I'm going to take. So
Okay.
one person's wondering about popcorn. I want you to talk about popcorn, but corn in general.
Yeah, I would say if I have to put corn into a category, that would definitely be on the pro-inflammatory end of the spectrum. So not one of the best choices. I know popcorn is a really common snack, actually. It has been for a long, long time. I was actually speaking to someone today, just before this call, and we were talking about what in the world happened with his blood work values dramatically worsening in a month or two. And so I started asking, like, well, gosh, has anything changed? Like, how could this be? And he told me that he's been doing popcorn every single night as a snack. And so I said, oh, well, maybe that's a factor. And then slowly he started to admit that he was also dumping butter on it as well as salt, So it's kind of funny how something that may seem kind of low calorie or kind of harmless, sometimes those things can really sneak up on us. So I wouldn't say that corn or popcorn fall into an anti-inflammatory snack category.
Okay, great. Last question, and hang tight for a little bit, everyone, but do meats and poultry have an effect on inflammation?
Oh, this is a really, really good question. I have to put those a little bit in the neutral category. When we take a look at proteins, which could include vegetarian sources of proteins like beans, it could include animal products such as poultry or red meat, could also include fish. When we take a look at all of those protein options, I would say that fish can often be anti-inflammatory. Poultry is going to be a little bit neutral, and red meat can be neutral or pro-inflammatory, depending on the details of that.
Okay, great answer. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, man, this has been a lot of fun, and there's been a lot of good interactions, but unfortunately we've kind of reached our time limit for today. So I just want to really, really thank you and appreciate all of you for tuning in, registering if you're watching this later on. Thank you to our wonderful guest, Dr. Kristen.
Yeah.
It's always a joy to talk with you.
Ryan, it's been so fun to talk with you. And this was such a fun audience. There were so many great questions coming in. I'm just like, phew, over here. You were just rapid firing me with questions. I loved it.
It truly is. And I really, really do appreciate the interaction from all of you. And if you have any more of these questions that you would like to get addressed, just know that at Align Modern Health, we do take free consultations. We encourage you to schedule a free consultation with one of our functional medicine providers or any one of our other providers if you have any inquiry about your diet, your health, your nutrition, and things like that. So just some really big takeaways for today. First, the small changes that you make will lead to these bigger ones that will lead to a lifestyle. Steph and I didn't go all in right away. In fact, you can see here that we're not perfect, and that's okay. We feel good about the progress that we're making. If you look at the ingredients and you don't understand the word, it's probably not that great for you. 3, if you're feeling a little overwhelmed with the choices, healthy fats, low carbs, antioxidants, stick to the whole foods as your choice. 75% vegetables and 25% fruit. You can't go wrong there.
That's right.
And don't be so hard on yourself. If you make a bad choice, just keep it to that one mistake and keep going. Like all things, you'll get better at keeping things clean as you go. If you have any additional questions, again, I want you and you want to see how we can help you, please visit us at alignmodernhealth.com or call us at the number on the screen to schedule your personalized free consultation. We are a network with most major insurance companies, and we do a complimentary insurance benefits check for you before your first visit. My name is Ryan. This is Align Modern Health's Digital Doc Series. In 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about recovering from COVID-19 and getting back to health. We look forward to seeing you again, rid from excessive inflammation and living your life to the fullest. Stay safe and see you soon. Bye now.
Thank you, everyone.